Welcome back to another episode of Allowed to Ask, a First Rounds on Media production. If you're looking to date with intention and actually get yourself on a date, First Rounds on Me is the app you need to check out. I used to hate chatting endlessly with someone only for a date to never get planned. Thankfully, First Rounds on Me solves that problem. The app requires you to plan a date in order to match with someone, which is honestly just genius. That's just one of the many ways they make dating easier and more intentional. Check it out and use code A2A, capital A, number 2, capital A, for a free month of their Terracotta subscription. Okay, it's just me today. No Janice, no mom. She wasn't able to make it, but I wanted to make sure that we still got an episode in. And I also told myself this year that I was going to challenge myself in different ways than I have before. And one of that being do a podcast alone. Never did I think I'd be in this situation, but I feel very blessed to even have this podcast. So I was like, fuck it. She's not here. We still need to record this week. So here I am sitting my ass down doing this alone. I wasn't honestly sure what I would talk about, considering I've never done this before. I'm no expert in any space. Even though this is a dating and relationship podcast, I figured that's the route I would take. But I first asked people on my personal Instagram and Allowed to Ask Instagram, like, what are things that you would want me to talk about? And not even just me, like someone who is 28, lived like the past few years in the city or her whole life in New York. Like, what are topics that you would want to hear and relate to, or and just, curious for another perspective. So a lot of the questions and topics I got kind of narrowed in on one larger theme of navigating your 20s and what does that look like. So the questions were around like where to go out, like how to meet people, how to build confidence in such a large, scary city. So I figured the theme of today would just be really navigating your 20s. I'm still in my 20s. I'm 28, almost 30, which is crazy. I mean, no, I have 2 years, but like still my mind jumps that way because I'm fucking psychotic. But I figured I would just start by talking about my early 20s, and how that was just a very pivotal time in my life. It was when I was 21, it was like the first time I was really single ever in like adulthood. Like, yes, I was single for times in high school and like middle school and elementary, but like, what the fuck? That's like you're not a human being. Actually, no, I'm just remembering I had a boyfriend when I was very, very young to 7th grade, but I digress. When I graduated college, I went to Syracuse. It was the first time I was really single and on my own and not in a relationship. I've been in a few long-term relationships, absolutely back to back between like high school going into college. And then I had 2 boyfriends throughout college, which were just really, aside from my high school relationship, like the 2 in college were just really, really unhealthy. And that was kind of my perspective on how I would be treated in a relationship or how dating would really go in the city. But also when I was in college, I wasn't thinking about like dating in Manhattan. 1, I had a boyfriend, so I shouldn't have been. But 2, it just wasn't, I was very like present in the moment in college. So when I graduated, my ex-boyfriend and I broke up like basically the first month, dare I say like the first day I moved into the city. And it was just the time when I was really single, an adult, dare I say. I was an adult at 21, I think I am. And it was just my time to explore everything. And I think that's true and that's valid for anyone, in whether you're in a relationship or not in your 20s, no matter what city you're in. I'm just talking about New York because that's really all I know. But it was just a time for me to really live it up. Like I've never had to never in my going out stage of life did I have an opportunity where I can go out and like not tell a guy where I am, or like even situations like with what I'm wearing. And if you're watching, I'm rolling my eyes because that should never be the situation. So my early 20s, I was just like living it up, doing what I believe people in their early 20s should do. I was going on dates with a lot of different guys, different types of guys. I was going out with my friends like a fuck ton. Like I feel like at some points I was literally going out like I was still in college, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like throw in a Sunday day drink. Personally, I could not do that anymore, but I think I did that all during a time when, 1, my body could handle doing that. I'm like a grandma on the inside now. And two, it was a time for me just to kind of like grow into myself and learn what I liked and what I didn't like. And I don't think I really realized all of those things until I am this age now, obviously. I don't think I've ever, like, sat down to really reflect and be like, "Oh my god, I needed to have those experiences," or "I'm so glad I did that," until I started this podcast because, every week my mom and I are prepping for episodes and asking dating questions. So, like, obviously you're gonna sit down and, like, reflect on my experience and how I can chime in to conversations that we're gonna have. So when I graduated college, I was just doing all the things, like I said, like going out a lot, like finding out like what I was like as a dater. And I think that is when I severely gained my confidence. And one of the questions I got was, or statements I got was, how are you so confident? Like, I feel like you're the person who could just go up to anyone at a bar, or not even just dating aspects, like go up to anyone at like a business meeting or introduce yourself in a cafe. And I don't think I was always like that, to be honest. Like, I never put myself, let me backtrack. I don't, I can't say I was never always like that, but I just never put myself in situations to do that before I was living in the city. So when I was in college or even when I would come home, like I never really went out of my way to introduce myself to someone because I wasn't in the mindset to do that. I wasn't in the state of like, networking or dating. I had boyfriends, but I wasn't looking to like seriously date when the small sliver of time I was single. So I never really understood like who I was as a person and my behavior and my character honestly until I graduated. And honestly, that all just stemmed through dating different people, you know, going through different jobs. Like my mom always said, I'm gonna bring in my mom's quotes here because obviously they're relevant every episode, but like you have to put yourself out there. Like I totally vouch by that too. Like you're not gonna find a boyfriend. You're not gonna get that job if you're sitting on your ass at home. So I think once I was looking for jobs, starting to date, it all happened at once. And I honestly was like learning so much about myself where I was like, oh, like I'm an outgoing person and that's how I'm going to continue to be. I'm losing my train of thought. Oh, and there was also this huge sense of freedom that I've never had before. Freedom in a sense where it's like I was living with my parents until college, and then I was in college with surrounded by friends. Like, I feel like college is like fake world. I mean, it's not fake world, and I loved my college experience, and I give it a lot of credit for what I do today business-wise, and obviously some of my best friends are from college. But when you're in the city right after you graduate, it's the first time you're kind of like on your own. Like, I still had roommates, but it's the first time you have your own space. You're not coming home to your mommy and daddy every single night. It's your time to like really do whatever the fuck you want. And that's what I did. And it was really, really fun. And I'm grateful I did that. I think back on my early 20s now and I'm like, I think I did it the way I wanted to do it. There's no right or wrong in how you should live your life. Like I am very glad, even at times I'd probably be upset. I'm glad that I was single for 7 years. So it's literally been 7 years until this past May. I have not been single. Um, and that's exactly how, even though if I didn't realize it at the time, like thinking back now, like that's exactly how I would have wanted it to be. But that might not be the case for everyone. Like I have two of my closest friends are with their high school/college sweethearts, and they never had a time in the city being single and exploring themselves in that way. But they're happy as fucking clams. So there's no right or wrong. This is just how I personally look back, and I feel good about decisions. So that's a win. I think going back into the comment around, one of the questions was like, how long have you been single or how long were you single and how did you navigate that? And this is something I talk about a lot on episodes, probably not so directly, but I was considered a boyfriend girl. Like I mentioned before, I had boyfriend in high school and then two in college, very much back to back with like minimal time in between, which I would not recommend. Like I don't know what I was doing. I don't even think I was like the same. I wasn't even the same person as I was today. But people used to call me a boyfriend girl. Like I remember my guy friends in college, they were my friends, but I could tell they were still poking fun because always like to have a boyfriend. And there was such a negative connotation around that where I felt weird about it, where I was like, why do I want to be in a relationship? Why am I in another one? Granted, I'm making it sound like I literally had like 85 boyfriends in a span of a year. But I think that was me being a little insecure and internalizing that in a way. But there usually is, I mean, I haven't heard the term boyfriend girl in a very long time in like my quote unquote adult age, but I feel like I heard it a lot when I was in college because it was directed at me and there was such a negative connotation around it. But in my eyes, like looking back now, it's like shoot me. Like sorry, I like being in a relationship and I like that companionship. And I think there's no right and wrong or how of if you want to be in a relationship or not. And I think once I graduated and my boyfriend and I broke up at the time, I was like this, even though I didn't realize it like at that moment, like I was like this is what I need. And I think that I truly do think that everyone does need at least a little moment of time to experience what they are like single because you expose yourself to so many things and people that you wouldn't necessarily. Um One of the bigger things that I even just I would say like worked on when I was single was dating outside of my circle. And this goes into the comment and question around like how do you meet people or how did you meet people? Um, I grew up in Westchester, very small Jewish community where like everyone, it's like it's very true. Like Jewish geography is a thing. Like everyone knows everyone, and you went on a date with that person, and they already know like who your ex boyfriends were and where you went to college and what you do for work and your social security number, like literally everything. And it got to a point where after my breakup and I was approaching the dating scene, I was like, I had my moments where I was like dating people who were just like in my scene because I was like, you know what? I haven't dated before. Let's just like start where we know, where we're comfortable. And then it got to a point where I was like, this isn't fun anymore because the guys I was going out with, they knew me already. They obviously didn't know me to my core, but they knew my best friends. They already got the lowdown on me. They did the background check on me and they got a vibe check from, friends of friends of friends. And that's great and all. And I hope that these people heard good things about me, but I never, ever, ever did a background check on people. I say background check so seriously, like you vet, like you ask your friends, you do a little research, maybe you throw it into Google. But I never wanted to do that because I never wanted a preconceived notion of someone. And this is something I encourage all the time. I think, I say to I don't have a lot of friends who are single now, but like when we all were dating, it's something I would preach and I still preach is don't check. I don't think it will do any good for you. And even if your friend knows the person, I think when you ask someone for kind of their thoughts on a person, you're going into that date with a preconceived notion of them, whether the person's telling you that they're great or they suck. I had a moment where my best friend set me up with this guy and she was like, he's great. Like he's amazing. Like no red flags, like amazing on paper. Like don't know his personality that well, but like I think you guys will mesh. If anything, you'll have a good night. So I went in thinking like this guy is going to be solid. He's going to be a nice guy. I'm going to like him. Like this is going to work out. Yay. I could not have been less interested in this guy. Like it was a very boring date. And I think from then on, that was like very early on in my dating. I almost just said my dating career. That's so weird. um, I I had no interest in him. And I think from there, I was like, okay, I don't care if this person's fucking amazing. I don't want to know about it because then I'm going to go in and be like, oh, she said he was great, but I thought he was kind of lame. What's wrong with my thoughts? So I think just going in with like a blank slate, even though your best friend knows them, like it just also gives more conversation. Like you don't need to pretend like you don't know what their job is. Like you can actually learn about what they do from them and not from their friend, a friend, a friend. Um, I think also dating outside of my circle, and this was only for like a smaller stint, I would say, exposed me just to like different types of people. Like I think I mentioned this before, but like I went on a date with like few foreigners, like at not at the same time, like different times in like a span of like 6 months. I went on with like probably like 3 or 4 foreigners, like by chance. Like I wasn't like seeking them. And in my head, like I knew they weren't gonna be my people, but it was just I honestly just out of that had so many good nights and stories, and, like, one of them is actually he's a friend of mine now, so you really never know who you can meet from, exposing yourself to people who don't know your name, don't know where you went to school, and all the other kind of high level things that you'd wanna know about someone before going into the date. I said this before, but being, in my 20s was when I really grew into myself and I understood, what was good for me and what wasn't. I had someone ask me about my jobs and my 2 companies, which is this, and then I have a social media company called 2 Kismet. It was just DNK Creative, but I joined forces with the business partners, and now we're called 2 Kismet, and how those really started. And I think when, like, people look at I'm just gonna say women for the sake of, because that's me, but starting a company, it's like you had to have it all together and, you know, there's a lot of curiosity around how that started. And mine, I think I'm the most surprised, if not my parents and my brother are the most surprised at the fact that I actually have 2 companies. Like, I was like the shittiest student. Like, I was, like, the shittiest student ever. I was, like, straight C's. Like, I was jumping for joy when I got a C plus. Like, it was actually crazy, but I worked really hard to try to do better, and I was just so unsuccessful until I went to college and I was actually studying shit that I cared about. And care is a stretch. Like, do I really care about advertising? Like, no, it was just my major, but I kind of enjoyed it. So I realized, like, you don't have to have it figured out in college. Like, I talk to a lot of young women about in college and graduating college, just about, like, their careers, because they reach out and just, like, want to get the lay of the land of what I do, and hopefully, there's a way for us to work together in the future. But I realize they're always so confused around, like, I don't know what major to do or what industry I should go in post college, and, like, in my head I'm like, that shit, honestly, to me, dare I say, it doesn't matter. Like, I do think my education at Syracuse, like, prepped me in ways for what I do today, but I don't think I really learned to be as good as what I do today from that. It's more so from actually experiencing it. So, when I graduated college, I was an apprentice. I wasn't even a full-time employee at this agency. I was doing PR, making, like, a dime a day, and I just think I didn't even study PR. Like, I studied advertising, like I said, and I went to a PR job. Like, what? Um, and I did this job for 2 years, and I was just like, "Fuck it." I mean, the agency culture got a little whack for me. So I was like, "All right, next step for me is to go in-house somewhere." But I was like, "I for sure don't wanna do PR, like, fuck that shit, it's so hard." So I was like, "I'm gonna go into social media." Like, I never even touched social media before besides my personal life, which, like, every single girly my age was doing. Um, and I honestly, like, barely even touched any of the social team when I was at this agency. So I don't know in God's name how, but I got a job running a social media account for this beauty company. Um, and it was, like, wild. Like, I swear I think about it today and I was like, "How the fuck did I get that job?" Because I had no experience. I don't know what I said to have that experience, but I learned everything I know about my business today, which I don't think I mentioned is a social media strategy agency. I learned everything from pretending like I knew what I was doing while at my second full-time job, and I was there for 2 years. Um, which, like, maybe I shouldn't vocalize out loud, but, like, it's literally the saying, like, not fake it till you make it, because I don't think I'm, like, still trying to, like, work to make it. I always wanna be up. I never wanna be at the top, because then that means you're going down. So, it's fake it till you become it, and I think I really defined that because I didn't know jack shit about social media. Like, yeah, I knew how to post. Like, yeah, I knew how to create concepts, but I honestly learned as I was in that role at this beauty company. And then next thing you know, I'm going into the story because someone asked how I started my companies, and I got laid off from this job after 2 years. Out of literally nowhere, I got called into an office and they were like, "Hey, we have to let you go." And I was like, "What?" And I was kind of just confused on where I wanted to go next. I actually, funny story, I got dumped the day before. So I got dumped for this guy, this loser guy, if you want to know. Um, I got dumped the day before with this guy I was seeing for a bit and laid off the next day. So it was like a riot of 24 hours for me, full blown emotions. Um, but I was going to Miami the next day to spend the month there with my family. So that came at a perfect time. And I was kind of just like confused as to like what I wanted to do next. I started applying at places. I had an interview with another agency that honestly I was like, I don't want. Like, I don't want another agency, but like I haven't interviewed in 2 years. So let me like oil up my engines and, get back into interviewing. And the first company I interviewed with, which is this agency, they were like, "You're not gonna," quote, she was like, the founder, we totally hit it off. I still work with them today. They're amazing. She was like, "You're not gonna vibe with the client that we would put you on for full time." And in my head, I'm like, I don't want full time anyway. I was just like interviewing for fun. She was like, "Why don't you start consulting for us? Like, I've seen some of the videos you've done for your previous at your previous full time. Like, why don't you just start consulting and doing social strategy for us?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, why not just like do an hourly rate, like see how it goes?" And I remember walking outside to my parents and being like, "I think I'm gonna start consulting." And then one thing led to the next. I just began pitching like crazy, and I had a full-blown LLC company within like 3 months. So, honestly, I was never the person who was like I never had like the entrepreneur like itch in me. Like, I talked to people, was talking to someone the other day and they were like, "Oh, I never had the entrepreneur bug." And like, let me tell you, like, neither did I. Like, I literally am the last person who I thought would have a company of my own and now also a podcast. Um, but I really just believe in like everything does happen for a reason. And like when I was like so sad and it was like literally 24 hours from being like dumped and laid off, I was like, this is it. Like, this is where it's all going downhill. It went the polar opposite in a very just natural way. There was never a moment where I was like, this is what I'm gonna do and make it happen. And I think that's an amazing approach too to get that motivation. But I kind of just took one small opportunity that I got and explored it, not knowing where it would go. And that was 2 years ago. And now I'm on my second agency, offer the same thing just with a business partner she's fabulous. And then I have this podcast, obviously, which I got and I started through one of my clients' first rounds on me. I created content for them. They have their own podcast. And to make a long story short, one day they are a media company also. So they were like, "We need more podcasts under our umbrella. Do you want to be a part of it and pitch us some ideas?" So I threw my mom into the ring. I'm pointing to her over here, like if she's here. Oh my God, it's so sad without her. And I was like, "Mom, you have no option," but they loved the idea of having a mother-daughter dating podcast. So like, buckle up, bitch, we're doing it. So here we are today. We are almost a year into this podcast. And that's such a lie. I think we're like, oh yeah, we're like 8 months in or something like that. And still doing my agency. And when I tell you what's coming next, I have no fucking idea. And I think that's the beautiful thing about kind of the mindset that I have is like, I don't know where this is going to go, where my agency is going to go. I'm just like going through the motions and, trying to keep my head above water and keep both of these companies running. And I believe just with that attitude, everything will fall into place. I want to go back to the topic around being confident because I don't think I fully finished my sentiment before. And oh my God, like I love to talk, but this is like crazy to talk for this long to absolutely nobody. But going back to the statement around how I am confident, how I was not always like that, or I never really put myself in a situation to kind of showcase my confidence. I truly like so and like in my deepest part of my soul, I believe that confidence is a mother effing mindset. Like, it's not something you are born with. It's not something that you can't have. It's something you truly have to shift your mind to get comfortable doing. So I think when I really learned to be confident and I wasn't even I wasn't even like trying to be in a way, or like I wasn't like, I'm gonna be confident and go up to that person. I think I just realized that like the people who kind of accept me for me and how I am around other people, they're gonna stick around. And the people who don't vibe with me are gonna not be in my life. And that just happened very naturally and organically. And I think that it's the same thing when it comes to strangers. Like if there was a guy who was in the bar who was cute, like I was going up to them. Like in my mind, and I would always, I had friends who, had took the opposite approach, and that's fine. There's no one way or the other. But my mind, I was so adamant on the fact of like, if you go up to a guy in a bar and you introduce yourself, which is like the next question was like, what do you say if you introduce yourself? Like literally, or if you go up to a guy, literally just introduce yourself. You have to, which I realized later on, like you have to put yourself in the other person's perspective that you're going up to. Like I'm trying to think like, imagine yourself, you're in a bar and someone comes up to you, whether it's a guy or a girl, or just like someone trying to be friendly. Unless you're a raging bitch, like asshole dick of a person, you're never going to be like, that person's a fucking weirdo. Like, you're never going to judge someone for coming up to you to introduce themselves. And if they are, then that's just not a person you want in your life at all. So that's kind of the mindset I had going into it when I would introduce myself to, guys at a bar, or if going to the work aspect of things, like introducing myself to someone who I think could be a good connection just to network, for my business. The mindset was like, how would I feel if someone was coming up to me? I would feel flattered. I would feel, intrigued as to why is this random ass person coming up to me. So that's the mindset I would have going into it, is literally, what do you have to lose? If they are an asshole to you about it, you don't want to engage with them ever again. Because in my mind, like, who wants an asshole in their life? And three is the same as one. Just fucking do it. There's literally no harm in doing it. The worst thing they say, especially dating wise, if the worst thing they say is either they have a girlfriend from a girl perspective or whatever, they have a girlfriend, they have a boyfriend, or they're gay or not interested in you. Okay. Which actually, funny story. I did this once at the gym. I was on the treadmill. This was like last year, or maybe like a year and a half ago. I was in the gym on the treadmill, and me and this guy, swear to God, we were looking at each other. This is not me just being crazy. We were looking at each other. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go up to him. And I don't know if anyone's gone up to someone at the gym before. That was actually my second time doing it. It's even harder doing it at the gym because everyone's in their own little mother effing bubble with their headphones in. And not just like headphones, like they're insane noise cancellation headphones. So I go up to this guy who's like doing bicep curls, so not relevant to the story, but I just wanted to paint the picture for you. He's done with his set. So I go up to him and I'm like, hi. He was like sitting on like one of those like bench press stools. So I go up to him, like kneel down. I get to his level. It was so weird of me. I'm thinking about it now. And I was like, hi, like I just like wanted to introduce myself. My name is Dani. You are like picture perfect. No, I didn't say picture perfect. I said, you are exactly what my type is. So I would have been mad at myself if I didn't introduce myself. Something along those lines. And the guy was like, hi, I'm going to use a name like Bob. I don't know why Bob came to my mind. That's my uncle's name. So that's a little weird. But he was like, hi, like my name's Bob. I'm gay. Like he didn't even like say like, oh, I'm flattered. He was just like, I'm Bob. I'm gay. So my response was, oh, so you're so not my type. So I'm so not your type. So that was it. Walked away from Bob. And now we used to see each other every once in a while at the gym and we say, hey, if anything, I got a gay friend out of it. So like, whatever. I loved this question that someone asked. They said, what are your thoughts on tracking your partner on Find My Friends? Tracking your partner is something I've never done, nor I think it's valid to have your partner's location when you have like kids and a family and shit gets serious in life. So I do think then, but I'm not in that stage of life. I'm in this stage of life, in a relationship, a great relationship, a trustworthy relationship, and I have zero interest in tracking my boyfriend. And we have not spoken about it, but I feel 1,000,000% confident that he feels the same way. My reasoning for this is, I could talk about my personality. I can't speak for anyone else, but I think I would be checking that even though I have no worries about my boyfriend. So I think like I don't know, like there was a time when I was like checking my friends' locations and I was like, why the fuck am I doing this? It's Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Like they're obviously at work. Um, so it was just like I find like it's not necessary to have your partner's location if you think you'll just be checking it and it'll make yourself worried about things for no reason. Like if there's even though I know like my boyfriend would never do anything because he'd be an idiot too, but I would just find myself looking at his location like, oh, he's at work or oh, he's still with his friends. Like I think there's a sense of independence you still have in your relationship. And a part of that is like not having your partner know where you are at every second of the day. Like, I mean, I'm someone who's very vocal. Like, I share what I'm doing a lot throughout my day to my boyfriend, and he's like polar opposite. But I don't like, I love him, but I don't really care like where, where he is at every waking second of the day, nor does he want me there. I think if there's a good level of trust, there's no need for it. And I think if you're asking for your boyfriend's location or your girlfriend's location, at least in like my stage of life right now, I think there's like a larger question to be asked around like, why do you really want the location? You know, is it just like out of pure curiosity and you love the Find My Friends app? Or is there more of a deep rooted issue where you feel like you need to know where they are at all times? Um, but then again, like if you want to track your partner, like by all means, go nuts. And I'm curious now. I'm gonna ask my boyfriend after if he would want my location, and I'm gonna circle back. I know the answer is gonna be no. So one of the last things I wanted to talk about was um just like being in a relationship now after not being in a relationship for a long time. And I don't know, I thought 7 years was a long amount of time. Some people might disagree. But I've mentioned this in like a lot of episodes, but I was in like very unhealthy relationships prior to my one now. Like my relationship now is like a full like 180 of like what my old ones have been. Yeah, 180, not 360. I don't really know which one of those two. And there was a time where I truly was like, am I going to meet someone who will actually treat me right? Because even guys that I was seeing for like months throughout my 7 years, like ended up just like, not all of them, but a lot of them just like ended up being not good people. So I was like, holy shit, like, am I attracting these individuals who like are truly just like not down for me? Like, you're not gonna treat me well. Um, and I think, my mom asked me this once in one of the episodes where it was like, what was different with your boyfriend now than, guys in the past? And I think there was my biggest answer for that. I could say literally a bajillion lists, but I can create a whole new podcast about that. Was just like the sense of calm I felt. There were still parts of me that were coming up, like a little bit of anxious attachment coming up, but that was fully a me thing and never a him thing. Like I had to sit back and be like, I needed to reflect on his actions, and my boyfriend's actions today, like, were always not leaning towards, were always making me really comfortable. So and making me feel secure and making me feel safe. And that wasn't even so much in like the things he was saying, because I think I've had the relationships before where it's hot and heavy. Not relationships, like guys I was seeing. I had that before where it was like so hot and heavy and they were being so vocal about like the future and just like saying all the things that like a girly wants to hear from a guy. And I think that all always went up into flames. I think with this relationship now, it was so comforting. There was like no worries. I was like, yeah, of course we're going to see each other again. Like, yeah, we're going to have that third date. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna XYZ, meet his friends, blah, blah, blah. There was no there was no games in the beginning. I was fully myself. I was a full blown fucking weirdo. And he loved that about me. And that was like the beautiful thing about it. And one of the biggest things I noticed too is on like first dates, you obviously talk about your job and your career. And a part of my job, obviously, I actually met him like a few weeks after, like a few episodes. Like I think after episode 2 of this podcast, I met him. But before this, And still now I create content for brands. So I'm like out there on social media, like talking about dating, or, my face is on camera for brands and their social media. And a lot of guys would be like, oh, that's so cool. But like kind of have like a skeptical sound to them and be like, that kind of sounds fucking scary. Like, do I want a girl who like is talking about dating on the internet? And he was just supportive from the get-go. Like, there was genuine curiosity in what I was doing because it was so unrelatable to what he's doing in his career and his life. So I think that was one of the main things for me too. It was like not just like asking the surface level questions, but more so seeing and sensing like the person's reaction to how you are and what you do and who you surround yourself. Like that was like the biggest telltale that I was like, okay, this like feels really good because, he's reciprocating that attentiveness that I like to believe that I give people when I'm first meeting them. So kudos to you, boyfriend. You're the best. Um Okay, I don't even know why I'm gonna go into this, but someone asked me about my skincare routine, and like, let me fucking tell you, my skin is horrible. Like, I'm not even gonna go into this. Like, I'm wearing makeup right now. My skin used to be glowing, gorgeous goddess until I literally it was actually like the month I met my boyfriend, I started getting hormonal acne. I can go on a tangent about this, but I literally had like raging acne when I first met my boyfriend, and this is also another thing where I was like, okay, if he can like me when I personally feel my worst, he was a keeper. So I can't give any skincare recommendations because right now I'm trying to figure it out too. I am on spironolactone, which has been a beautiful, beautiful drug. I'm the girl who's like, if there's a drug to make things go away, like I probably shouldn't say this actually, but like if there's a drug to make it go away, not like drugs, like hard drugs, but like if it's a drug to make it go away, I'm doing it. Like Accutane, I haven't done it, but I would do it. Spironolactone, say no more. Like headache, give me Advil. Like I was never one who was like, don't give me the medicine. I'm like, inject it in my veins. So I'll circle back on the skincare routine once I have my shit nailed down because right now I don't. I'm going to a dermatologist every month, like, and my insurance hates me. Actually, I hate my insurance, but that's irrelevant. Okay, so my mom and I have been ending episodes by asking our guests kind of like finish the sentence questions. So I pulled some that we've never gotten to, or maybe we have and I'm just blanking, but I've never answered them. So I thought it could be interesting for me to answer my own statements in a way. So when I'm getting to know someone, the first thing I want to know about them is. So for this, I would really say the first thing I wanted to get to know about someone was not so much like tangible information on what they're saying. I wanted to know like how they interacted with other people, including myself and the people in the bar or the restaurant. Like I was very honed in on the person's body language, the eye contact. I was fucking, even like now, I'm huge on eye contact, even with friends. Like if I am talking to someone, I would like to look, you don't need to stare at me in the fucking eyes the whole time. That's weird and creepy. But like, I would be very, very coherent as to like how the guy was sitting across from me, was his arms crossed? Was he slouchy? Was he, not facing me if we were sitting next to each other? So the first thing I really wanted to know about someone was what is like their demeanor around other people. And noticing that throughout the day, because obviously I think in the first moment of a first date, like everyone's fucking weird. And you get more comfortable. So seeing how they kind of loosen up over time. So maybe that's a niche answer, but that was something I always looked at. The most overrated dating advice I've heard is, I would say you will find someone when you least expect it. I think that is the biggest load of bullshit ever. Like, dare I say. Like, I never really believed that. And I know that's one of like the biggest like things people say in dating is like, you'll find it when you least expect it and it's just gonna happen when the time is right. That I believe. It will happen when the time is right, but I don't think it's when you least expect it. When I met my boyfriend now, I was ready for a boyfriend. I was ready for a boyfriend probably for a year before that. Maybe I say a year and a half. So I was not in a stage where I was just like la-di-da dating around. I was like ready. I was ready and I was being very particular about who I was going out with and who I, gave second dates to. I'm making myself seem like a bachelor, like the Bachelorette. But I don't believe that's the case. I think it can go both ways, but in my situation, I was very much like ready and looking for a boyfriend, I guess. I don't know if looking is a term. I was still going through the motions of like still going through the motions of when I had the mindset of I didn't want a relationship. But I don't believe that a relationship happens always only when you least expect it. I think it obviously happens too when you are, searching for something. The biggest lesson I've learned from a past relationship is that you have to have a major sense of individuality in a relationship. In my past relationships, I lost all beings of myself. Like, and I don't know if that's a saying, but like if that makes sense. But like I just lost every aspect of myself. Like I actually just listened to the Rachel Kirkconnell and Matt James breakup podcast. She was on Call Her Daddy, and I really resonated with what she was saying. I don't even think she realized it in this moment, but this is how I was very similar to her in my old relationships, in the sense where I was bringing up a concern that was bothering me. I was trying to confront my boyfriend at the time about things that upset me. And for some reason, at the end of the conversation, and Rachel said the exact same thing, she was the one and I was the one apologizing. So I would just always feel very confused. And I lost my sense of like personality. And, I never really, I don't think thinking back on it now, I was ever like really myself in those relationships because I didn't have the experiences that I had today. And my boyfriends were just controlling and rude and like literally had to like check my outfits, which is so wildly inappropriate. But so that's what I would say. My biggest lesson is that you have to still foster a sense of, your own self in a relationship. And that can even stem into like the friend conversation too, like making sure you still keep in touch with your friends and making plans with your friends without your partner. Making sure you still have that foundation and that drive outside and that life outside of your partner, I would say is the biggest thing I learned, because there were times in my life when I so did not. Like I would literally, my boyfriend would say jump and I would say hi, how high. So, a controversial, whoa, I can never say this word. A controversial topic I think you can ask about on a first date is, I think you can ask someone what they are looking for. Okay, like, dare I say that? Shoot me. But I think it's so important for you to get an understanding of if you and this person are, granted, I think a first date could be a little nuts, but maybe a second date is understanding what this person wants out of dating. I do think there are a lot of people who date for fun, date seriously, and those two can mesh. Um, I think it depends on how you approach it. Like, I don't think you should be like, "Oh my god, do you wanna get married and, like, have children?" Like, I think there's a way to approach it that's a little more casual, just being like, "What are you looking for in dating? Like, what's dating like for you?" Like, I think it's so crazy when people pretend like people haven't gone on dates before you. So I would always ask, like, what's, like, a crazy date story you've been on, or, like, anything funny happened on a date before that you don't wanna happen again. Like, I think stories like that also get someone comfortable and also puts things into perspective. The best dating advice I've heard is, I don't necessarily think this is like tailored towards dating. I think it could be really towards everything, but I heard a saying that I absolutely loved, so I want to share it. And I think it resonates with this is, you have nothing to fear if you have nothing to hide. I literally saw that on a billboard in like Times Square the other day, and I loved it. And I think it just really resonates with dating. So I heard that from a billboard, but I think it really resonates with dating in a sense where you truly have nothing to lose or nothing to hide. Um, or no, sorry, you have nothing to fear if you have nothing to hide. Like, there is no shame or harm in going out, introducing yourself to someone, sitting across the table for a few hours and talking about yourself. You know, the only thing that is getting in your way, if the only thing that's getting in your way is fear, that is the last reason why you should not do something. And that applies very much so to work and business too. And in a sense where I had no idea what I wanted to do with my agency, but I said, fuck it. And I, continued to pitch, and I'm still at a point of my career where I'm like, where is this going? What's going to happen? But I can't let the unknown, or you can't let the unknown stop you from, going for what you want. That was deep. Whoa. The one thing I wish dating apps would stop doing is, I was a big fan of dating apps, and I still am a big fan of dating apps for people who are single. I think the issue is not so much with the apps, and it's even though like every app is different and whatever, but the issue is not in my eyes. The issue is not so much with the apps. It's more so with the people. Like, I'm sorry to call singles out. And like, I was the same way too, is we found something to complain about with everything. The people I'm most compatible with aren't great. We're being ghosted. My city sucks. The app is glitching. Blah, blah, blah. Like, there's just so many things that people can complain about. When I think the issue is like your approach to dating and your approach to meeting people. And I think if you just shift your mindset, like, yeah, you might get like a crappy batch on or a crappy, few singles on your apps, and that might put you in a little bit of a rut. But if you just change your mindset, we're like, okay, you're not gonna get a crappy bunch every single time you go on the dating app. It's completely a mindset. So if you go in with the mindset of like, I'm gonna meet someone, I'm gonna have fun, and if I don't like them, I'm gonna have a good story to tell my friends, you'll have a much more enjoyable dating life. And it's not something you feel like you have to do, but switching the mindset to where it's like, oh, I get to go on these dates. I get to swipe. I get to meet people. I get to talk about myself to strangers and have people be curious about me. I think that was where I wanted to end. Okay, this was really fun. And I literally have dry mouth from talking for 45 minutes straight, which is something I'm used to in real life, but not to no one else. But thank you so much for listening. Let me know if you guys liked this format, even though most episodes will be with my mom, but there might be times where she can't get her cute little butt to the city. So let me know if you liked this format, any other topics I should talk about. And yeah, like, subscribe, all of those good things, and we will see you next week.